Daytime. SCP Daytime.
Well, it looks like it's going to be another fine day.
Resistance is futile. Just simulate the day.
Go ahead. Make my day.
How was your day today? Did you have a good day today or a bad day today? Well, what kind of day was it? Well, I don't know. How about you? How was your day?
We have a big show for you. Good luck, show boy.
How on with you and away we go.
That's the smartest thing I've heard all day.
SCP Daytime.
Time for another edition of Increase Your Word Power. We're big fans of irony around here at Daytime, and lately the supply has been even more plentiful than the number of guys, and eventually, we imagine, girls who Taylor Swift has yet to date and dump. Irony, of course, is and always has been present in our daily lives. Here are some fun examples of the ironic amongst us. Meanwhile, in England, Remain voters are voicing their outrage amid claims by some people who voted for a Brexit that they regret that decision. Electoral services workers have reported calls from people asking if they could change their decision after last Friday's result became clear, while some publicly admitted they intended to use a protest vote in the belief the UK was certain to remain in the European Union. Many British voters commented in true morning after fashion they were simply confused as they went about the business of pulling the plug on England's membership in the European Union. That confusion over what Brexit might mean for the country's economy appears to have been reflected across the United Kingdom over the last week. Google reported sharp upticks in searches not only related to the ballot measure, but also about basic questions concerning the implications of the vote. At about 1 a.m. Eastern, about 8 hours after the polls closed, Google reported that searches for "What happens if we leave the EU?" had more than tripled.
No way!
Wow. Millions of seemingly intelligent people line up to cast a vote to effect radical historic change in their way of life, vote in sufficient numbers to actually affect that radical historic change in their way of life, only to be inflamed, frustrated, and frightened that the effect of their vote is a radical historic change in their way of life. Thinking you could call that ironic. Come to think of it, another word comes to mind, though. Stupid. Or in the spirit of being more charitable, ignorant. To be even more charitable, let's say that the stupid and ignorant voters of the United Kingdom, a description soon to be enshrined in the Oxymoron Hall of Fame, by the way, were uninformed. Now, anyone with an IQ that at the very least hovers around the baseline, let's say you can't name the 3 branches of government, but you can name at least 6 real housewives, knows that what has happened in England in the past week is easily, almost inevitably, compared to what millions of Americans believe is happening in our own upcoming national referendum. Let's see. Millions of seemingly intelligent people lining up to cast a vote to effect radical historic change, and so far voting in sufficient numbers to actually effect that radical historic change. Could we be talking about the Donald? Well, of course, duh. We're talking about Donald. What is ya? One of them silly, stupid, ignorant people from over there in England? Where they talk funny?
We have different vowels for hot and dog from we do in talk and law. So that's hot dog, talk law.
Good Lord, man, those people don't even know which side of the damn road to drive on. Now, while the comparison between what a whole lot of Brits did last week and what a whole lot of Americans have been doing so far this year is a logical and reasonable comparison to draw, it's not really necessarily ironic. Moronic? Well, arguably, although the final jury won't be done deliberating that until November. The irony in the tale of Trump and the British bye-bye is actually to be found more in what's missing from the big pictures. 3 words.
3 little words.
Education. Well, okay, so that's actually just 1 word. But those of you smart enough to know that don't need to be told that. And the rest of you, well, clearly you're not informed enough to know that. Oh, and by the way, that right there, that's irony.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
Let's talk education.
Up in the morning and out to school.
Used to be, as my granddaddy would say, that going to school, completing school, graduating from school, and entering life with a solid foundation of an education were not only some of the benefits and privileges of growing up in America, they were essentially essential to both the quality of the individual American life and also the future advancement of the American civilization. Today? No, not so much. Knowledge may still be power, but it's about a gazillion miles from being a prerequisite to anything anymore. Orange may be the new black, baby, but stupid is the new sexy. Does that seem a little harsh? Well, let me just say 4 words. Car-E-on. Yeah, I know. I misspelled 2 of the 4 words. The paradigm of getting an education being fundamental to function, let alone flourish in life, has gone the way of the 8-track tape player, the landline phone, and actually dressing up a little bit to go to church. What? Oh. Right. Sorry.
I just don't understand.
Now, it's not that people have become proactively anti-education necessarily. It's just that the perception that having an education is important has dropped out of, at the very least, the top 10. Part of that arguably can be attributed to technology. We now have so many things that take care of doing so many things for us that it's not really necessary to figure out how to do things for ourselves. And we're not talking about terabyte level laptops and tablets or smart screen flat screens that do almost everything up to but not yet including making your breakfast for you. We're talking about something simple like an automatic transmission.
Baby, you can drive my car, and maybe I love you.
Learning how to shift gears was once not only a rite of passage, but a skill essential to achieving the hope and dream of getting that sucker out of the driveway and into the flow of traffic. Put it in D and go, though, has been standard operating procedure for so long now that the youngers amongst us probably hear 4 on the floor and think, all right, Kama Sutra. Still, the need for knowledge has a way of reminding us of its value in the most impish, sudden, and unexpected ways. What do you mean the rental truck only comes with a 5-speed stick shift? What's a stick shift? Technology isn't the only culprit, though, when it comes to the de-evolution of our emphasis on education. The need to know is still very much alive and very well. But the need to know how to find the common denominator or correctly conjugate the verb or what the Keystone Pipeline is really all about, or hell, simply understand the difference between two and two has been rudely shoved aside by the need to know whether Melisandre stays banished or not, and how, given all her burdens to bear, Kendra always seems to come out on top. If none of that makes any sense to you, by the way, seriously, congratulations and thank you. Where other people would incorrectly use to where to is correct, you're one of those who correctly use to. Here's the point, courtesy of a little Will McAvoy paraphrasing. America is not the most educated country in the world anymore. Awareness of trivia has become more important than knowledge of information. Superficial, banal bullshit fills the spaces in the national cerebellum once filled with history and philosophy and good old-fashioned reading, writing, and arithmetic. And of the millions of people who can quote you, word for word, the Second Amendment to the Constitution, bet you all the money in my pocket against all the money in your pocket that next to none of those people know the difference between 2 and 2. If the founders that the self-professed constitutional scholars seem to know so much about had only had the presence of mind to put a teeny tiny extra condition on that right to bear arms business, something along the lines of a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people, sufficiently educated to understand the difference between 2 and 2, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Today's way of life would be win-win. All this nasty pettiness about guns would go away because only a very select group of enlightened, literate, and educated people would make up that always interesting group known as gun owners. Or the lines to the admissions offices of major universities in this country would be around the block most of the time. Alas, the founders wrote what they wrote with an apparent confidence that common sense, good judgment, and concern for one's fellow man would always be deciding factors in implementation of their words. How's that for ironic? England just turned their own country upside down by voting their approval of a process that, from all reports, many of them had little or no understanding of. America is about to be turned upside down by voting their approval of one of only 2 available candidates for the office of President of the United States. One who breaks through the glass ceiling to become the first female President of the United States, but who generates so much hatred, vile, and vitriol that the next 4 years will very likely be nothing more than yet another 4 years of fuck me, oh, fuck you.
Are you talking to me? I said, are you talking to me?
Well, maybe he was talking to me.
Or one who breaks with tradition by becoming the first president to never have held previous elective office, but whose personality, ego, and irrefutable narcissism, combined with his redefining of the term demagogue, appeals primarily to the very worst, hateful, vile, and vitriolic in the human condition. No one can say, with any guarantee of accuracy, that a renewed focus on and energy toward education in this nation would cure all that ails us. One thing is pretty sure, though. We can very clearly see the results of a nation lacking education. In England, it just resulted in chaos, upheaval, and foundation shaking, very likely on a global scale. In America, it's going to result in chaos, upheaval, and foundation shaking, very likely on a global scale. For want of a nail, the horseshoe was lost, and so on to the inevitable unhappy ending, as that poem tells us. And because somewhere along the way, we've allowed the schoolhouses to deteriorate, the schoolwork to be more bother than blessing, the learning to be more tedium than triumph, we're starting to see the reaping from the sowing. Or, more accurately, the lack of the sowing. Just let the masses, the trivial, obese, informationally anorexic masses, exercise yet another of their rights by wandering into the voting booth and making life-changing decisions without any real comprehension, understanding, or usable practical knowledge of the ripple that will be created with the flick of that lever or the push of that button. Today's word is irony. Check this out. All those uninformed, misunderstood, incomprehensible votes that are being cast, a whole lot of them are being cast at the polling place in your local precinct, at your neighborhood school. How's that for irony?